Welcome back to Games Revealed. I'm Jameson also Brink, and we are one. So today is GPU hunting season. So let's open those floodgates. It sounds like just the past few months with the crypto market crashing. For those who are that have crypto, I'm sorry, including myself. It sucks. But for those who don't and want a GPU, this is a great season to maybe get yourself one, especially in Nvidia. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how just the GPU price dropping finally, the next gen of GPUs, and just maybe one little tip that you should do before if you end up getting a used GPU, especially one that's been mined. So before we get into it, make sure to like, subscribe, bash that bell with your crowbar. Now let's get into it. We're gonna go on a field trip. So we're gonna go to Tom's Hardware. The article is claiming that there are GPUs being listed for $523, 3080s that to be more precise. I haven't quite found this price yet, but I found at least listings of like cards that are being auctioned off at this price. I'm finding more and more prices around maybe $600 to $700. The MSRP on the 3080 is $699. Now, that being said, it's at the end of its life cycle in the sense of the 4000 series is going to be coming out soon. So, but I will say with this, you're going to probably want to either go with the 3080, like the 3000 series or 4000 series for one reason, and we'll get into that a little later. So, yeah, it's GPU hunting season. There's just because of the crypto crash. Also, there's also legal reasons in China, and it's just a bunch of other reasons for the GPUs to be finally sold off. It's probably going to hurt, honestly, Nvidia in the short term. Maybe not starting out yet. We'll see if they can get enough of these flooded onto the market and they're a good enough deal. People can pick them up and not have to pay as much. Now, the downside to all this, and I know Linus Tech Tips, he already covered this and even proved that, hey, a mined GPU for 4 years did not perform any different than a regular GPU. But I will have to say, I preface 100%, it all depends on the source, who was doing it. It really does depend. If you know that it came from a GPU farm that is respectable, then yeah, 100%. Should be fine. You should be good to go. Yeah, some of the life cycle is cut off, obviously. Let's say if it's been mining for straight 2-3 years, some of that life cycle is cut off. That's fine. You should have a couple of good few years. With that, you're also going to need to watch out for, let's say, single owners that only one person that mined on their GPU, or maybe they're just kind of more amateurish. I don't know how you'd really be able to tell. Maybe ask them how it was mined and maybe investigate just a little bit, because some people will overclock them and if you're not in a good enough environment, not enough cooling and all that, you can start to cause damage after a certain amount of time overclocking with heat. I don't know how the GPUs deal with that these days, but I know in the past, like I've had GPUs from overclocking become artifact ridden, where I'd be playing games and artifacts would pop up on the screen. So I slightly ruined the video card, still didn't fully ruin it, and I was still able to play. It's just I had triangles popping up and artifacts, right? So it wasn't like the most pleasant experience. I just didn't, it still kind of works, so I just YOLO'd it and just continued playing with it. I just don't want other people to get, let's say spend $500 on a 3080. That's a decent enough deal, but if it doesn't really function as a new one would, I would say you're getting a lemon, because GPUs they last a good long while. Either they work well or they just don't work very well, in my opinion. Once the performance kind of degrades, it's not really worth it, my opinion. But yeah, who knows what else comes with that. So with that, before we move on to just seeing like what eBay looks like, I recommend putting thermal paste, like renewing the thermal paste on your GPU if you're buying a used, especially if it's been like used for more than a year or two. It's good to reapply the thermal paste anyways on CPUs and GPUs. It's not as much prevalent on a GPU, but I'm thinking kind of to get by some of the issues with let's say you're overclocking, even if they're keeping things at a good room temp, heating up that GPU is going to it's going to make things just dry out a little bit quicker. So even though it's not going to ruin the GPU in that short amount of time, or even let's say in the 2 years, it could start to degrade, and it's just good to refresh that paste. Make sure, just to make sure, and you more or less you'll see things overheat and then your performance degrades. Typically, it doesn't ruin the GPU in my experience, but just to be on the safe side, I recommend reapplying the paste if you're going to go down the route of buying one. And I'm definitely not saying don't get one. I'm much more cautionary when it comes to this type of stuff, especially if you've seen some of the, way these are treated right here. Don't mind the warning that this post might have been removed, but the picture still is real. So, and there's multiple pictures that you can go on the internet and just see GPU farms just throwing these cards onto the ground as they, rip them out of the servers or the casings that they're in. And then, I'm assuming selling them online, selling them in their local market, whatever it is. Just know that, like, hey, you could be getting one of these. Is it going to work fine? Yeah, I'm sure. This is more of a cautionary thing. I really don't want to say don't get one. Just be careful when you're going out to get one. Make sure not to buy from anyone that's like a brand new eBay user. That's definitely a big tip. Like with Steam Decks, there's a lot of Steam Decks that are going for under the MSRP, and they're almost always fake. Almost always. You typically get your money back through eBay when those become, when it's realized, but it just sucks that there's a lot of fake. The listings for Steam Decks, same thing's probably going to happen with a video card. So just be wary. Like if it's $200 and it's supposed to be $800, $600, let's say used $500, 3080's $200. Just be careful with that. Just typically there's probably going to be something wrong. Sometimes they don't mention it very well. There's one trick that people have done with GPUs I noticed was putting manuals. Like they'd sell manuals, but they'd put the manual in the title in some weird way to where and mainly show a GPU, so you think you're getting a GPU, and then you buy it, and then by the time it's essentially too late because they say no returns. I'm assuming I don't know how the loophole works. I don't know if eBay would allow money back on a manual. I mean, not like a manual is worth $100. It's obviously a scam, but I saw those happening all the time, and I'm pretty sure I saw people purchasing them because they said the listing was no longer available or purchased, I believe is what it was. It wasn't like it was just taken off. So we're in eBay territory now. You can see the product rating. That product rating probably exists because of mining. So with the 2.5 out of 5 stars on this 3080. So you can see right here, buy it now, $674. That's not a bad price. It's just it's pre-owned. So it sucks. It really does suck that you're going to be getting essentially a used video card at the MSRP, but you can get one. And if it was taken care of well enough, it should last you a few years. It's still better than going to Best Buy. If you go to Best Buy, the prices suck. Still, they're going to normalize, I believe, as time goes on and things get a little bit more stocked in the new world. But with that, that might be hard too, since the 4000 series is coming up. So you can see like the 3080 Ti right here, $999. Another a 3080. There's still people trying really hard to sell these at just a little bit more than it needs to be. But you can also see that other prices. This one's a bidding one, but we'll see where it ends. You can definitely tell that the market's dropping quite a bit, and I'd keep an eye out because I think it's going to continue to drop. Now, if there's enough demand and enough people buying them at the little bit higher price, then it won't drop. So I can't say collectively that we're going to do that, because I think when people want to, they see a deal, they're going to jump on it. But if we can hold off a little bit, they usually drive the demand a little bit lower, and then causing those prices to go a little bit lower because they're just going to be sitting on product, and that's not typically a good thing. That is almost never a good thing unless the product just appreciates or doesn't depreciate. So let's move on to the 4000. This is a rumor. I'm using the webpage for visuals. So with that, the top end of the 4000 series is going to have a power limit of 800 watts. That's crazy. That's really crazy. And then you can see we get down into the 260s, 400, 450. What that tells me, honestly, this is what I've seen in the past few weeks, and I've seen some people comment on it. This kind of telling me that this is their limits, meaning if a company, one of these third-party video card companies want to come out, or even let's say Nvidia wants to come out with a special card that takes advantage of all that wattage, they can. I don't, because they can always adjust the power draw limits, right? So I'm thinking this is all speculation, and on my part, 100%. This is the Brink or James, whatever you want to call me, kind of speculation that these are going to be halved, like maybe 350 to about maybe 600 watts is what you're going to expect on the high end, and with that extra room if for overclocking, or if they want to come out with additional things to charge more for. That's kind of how I see it here. It still is very high on the wattage, so I'm definitely going to say if you're thinking about going into the next cycle, you're going to want a beefy power supply. And even if they're going to come close to these numbers, you're going to want to probably get 1,000 to 1,200 watt power supply if you're building a new one right now. If you're not building a new one, then you might want it, and you're like, let's say you have a 2000 series or 1000 series graphics card, maybe just pick up the 3000 series and call it good for the next 2 years until we really see how the wattage is going. Because right now it's rumors, we can see what it is, but until they release the cards, until we see real world experience and just application, it's fun to read. It's fun to imagine that, hey, we're going to need a nuclear plant in every frickin' just town, city, maybe block at this rate with the way power is going like this. And then, the cost of power, the cost of running these computers are going to be so expensive with electricity going up in certain areas in the world. Yeah, the 3000 series might be pretty good. And with them being used, you're going to get a good deal. So that's really my thoughts on the whole GPU sphere right now. I'll talk more on it in the future as I learn more. This is fun stuff. I'm rolling a 3090. I love it. I had to buy a pre-made PC. It's one of my, PC gaming sins. I had to buy a pre-made. Nothing really wrong with it. It's just fun to, say that. And just because I wanted the 3080 actually. But when I went to go buy the pre-made, the 3090 was, the 3080 was just, it's a hot item for mining. So the 3090 was only like 100, 200, I think more. And so I bought it, and great deal for the time. But we had to scrape by and get what we could get during the hard times of the GPU shortage, where it wasn't a shortage. It was just, Nvidia selling it to the highest bidder, which, the company, I guess, maybe that's another reason to buy AMD, which are really, they stabilized in price. They're good graphics cards. I tend to like Nvidia a little bit more, but AMDs are great too. So go for whatever you want. It is, like I said, GPU hunting season, buying season is going to be back on the market. You're going to be able to get your tags to go and get a GPU. So make sure to do that. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. What do you think? Are GPUs that are mined completely off limits? You shouldn't get them. Or, it's free game, just be careful. Or, heck, you're going to buy 2 or 3 of them and just because they're so cheap now. So let me know in the comments. And once again, check out my description for all the goodies. And thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out. Later.